Since BigInt is the newest JavaScript type available, I thought it important to spend a bit more time on it. The first thing that I think is important to understand is why we needed this new type. The reason for this is that the number type cannot accurately account for very large integers. Let's look at that really quick. So if I open the console here, I'm just going to log to the console this statement, this number here, and watch what happens to it when it logs it to the console. It rounds it up. And so the number type can't safely represent certain numbers. And really it's numbers between this value here, number safe integer, that number there, and the upper limit is max safe integer. So within those limits, number is able to represent those integers correctly. We go above that and we can run into issues. So in order to accommodate larger numbers, BigInt was added. Now in the past, developers would use a library or they would convert the number to a string in order to deal with very large numbers and work with very large numbers. But with the addition of BigInt, it is a built-in object and it can be used to represent these larger numbers. Now to create a BigInt, you can add the letter end at the end of the number or use the BigInt constructor. And so both of these methods work. So here, if I go back up, if I add the letter n, now notice it no longer rounds. It is able to handle that number correctly because we have n at the end. Or I could also just do the BigInt constructor, which would be like this. And then parentheses, and we pass in the number as a string. And basically what it does is it converts it to a big integer. And so that basically returns the same number as we got up here. And so either one of those methods can be used to create a big integer. Now with BigInts, you are able to use multiplication, addition, subtraction, division, the modulus operator, and the exponentiation operator. So those operators are all available. Now to show some of those really quick, let me just set up a big number for myself. I'm going to assign it to a variable so I don't have to keep typing it in. Now the trick with using some of these operators is you have to match type. So if I just enter +20, notice the error I'm about to get if I press return. Uncaught type error, cannot mix BigInt with other types. But if I add an n, then it works. It does the addition. And so all of these are possible. There's subtraction. Now if I do multiplication, now I can also do the modulus operator. Now if you're not familiar with the modulus operator, it is the percent sign. And what that does is that returns the remainder. And it's going to return it as a big int. I'm going to use for n. The remainder of that, when we divide 4 by this large number, the remainder is 3. And it expresses it as a big integer, even though it's a smaller number. And then finally, we can use the exponentiation operator as well, which is the double asterisk like that. And then we get a very large number. Now, I haven't shown the division operator yet, and that's because the division operator works a bit differently. It works as expected if the results are a whole number. But something to be aware of is that BigInts won't display a decimal number. They are big integers, and emphasis on the integers. So if I did something like this, 5n divided by 2n, that technically is 2.5, but it displays 2n. It doesn't display the decimal portion of that. Now, something else to be aware of with big ints is they are not strictly equal to numbers. However, they are loosely equal to numbers. Now, remember when we talked about strict equality and loose equality. So with strict equality, they're not equal. So for example, if I did 5n and then strict equality 5, that comes back false. But if I did 5n and then we did loose equality 5, that comes back true. And so something important to be aware of when comparing big integers with regular numbers. Now the greater than and less than comparisons can be used as normal. So 2 is less than 5n, that's true. It does that comparison fine. We don't have to worry about that. So that's big integers. If you're unfamiliar with them, that gives you a good introduction to them. And when you need to work with and track very large numbers, then this new data type is invaluable. But at other times, you can simply use the number type and you'll be able to work with things just fine. All right, let's move on to the next topic.